You probably have a jar of quarters on your dresser right now. But what if I told you that one specific Washington quarter in your pocket could pay off your house, buy a Lamborghini, and still have cash left over? Yeah, sounds crazy. But these quarters are just sold for $3.5 million because of a mistake the mint never wanted you to find. Stop doom scrolling and grab your change, because here are the 3 quarters worth millions. What if I told you that a single quarter, a coin so ordinary you could have pulled it from a vending machine last week, just changed hands for an eye-watering sum that rivals the price of a luxury home in suburban America? Not a gold coin, not a pristine proof from the 1800s, a 1995 P Mint Mark Washington quarter. And the final sale price? $600,000. Nearly $600,000 for 25 cents of face value. Now, before you dismiss this as fantasy or some internet hoax, let me ask you a far more personal question. When was the last time you actually looked at the quarters in your pocket? When was the last time you did anything other than flick one into a parking meter or toss it into a jar on your dresser? You see, there are 2 kinds of people in this world. The spender, who sees only face value, who trades precious metal and rarer air for a pack of gum. And the collector, the one who pauses, who inspects, who understands that true wealth is not what you earn, but what you overlook. Today, we're going to rewire your brain to see pocket change entirely differently. And by the end of this video, you will either be rushing to your change jar or kicking yourself for every quarter you have ever carelessly spent. Stop right now. Pause this video if you have to, but go grab a handful of quarters from your car's cup holder, from the laundry room, from that dusty coffee can on your shelf. I will wait, because what I am about to reveal applies to every single Washington quarter minted in 1995 at the Philadelphia facility. And the error I'm going to describe is so subtle, so diabolically easy to miss, that experts believe fewer than 20 examples still exist in circulation. 20. In a nation of 330 million people. Do you feel that? That is the fear of missing out. That is the spender's regret before it even happens. Let me make this crystal clear. The difference between a 25-cent coin and a 6-figure retirement check is a fraction of a millimeter, a ghost of a mistake made 30 years ago inside a mint that never admitted the error even existed. Welcome to the hunt for the 1995 P. Washington quarter's forbidden error. I am your guide into the shadowy world of numismatic forensics, where die cracks speak louder than certificates, and where a single anomaly can rewrite a family's financial future. Today, we are talking about what collectors have quietly named the Ghost Mint Mark error. And it is exactly as rare as it sounds. Let's travel back to the spring of 1995. The Philadelphia Mint was running at full capacity, punching out hundreds of millions of Washington quarters to meet the demands of commerce. The obverse, featuring the stoic profile of America's first president, was supposed to carry a tiny P mint mark just to the right of Washington's ponytail. That mint mark was the proud signature of the Philadelphia facility. But on a handful of planchets, something went terribly wrong. The die that stamps the obverse design had been overused, pushed past its safe lifespan without replacement. Cracks began to form not on the surface, but deep within the steel of the die. And here's where the ghost story begins. When a die develops microscopic fractures, those fractures can fill with grease, with metal shavings, with a film of dried lubricant. The next time that die strikes a quarter planchet, the grease prevents the full design from transferring. But the 1995 P error is far more sinister. On these specific quarters, the mint mark itself was struck not once but twice. Not a traditional double die where you see clear doubling of the letters. No, this is a shelf-like doubling, where the second strike is slightly offset and partially obscured by die deterioration. Imagine writing the letter P on a piece of paper, then sliding the paper a hair and writing another P on top, but with a dry pen. That is what you were looking for. A faint, shadowy second P slightly southeast of the primary mint mark. Experts call it mint mark doubling with die wear. But the market has given it a far more evocative name, the Phantom P. Now, if that were the only error, this coin might be worth a few $100s. But the 1995 P Ghost Mint Mark quarter carries a second, even rarer defect. Remember those die cracks we mentioned? On the reverse side, just above the eagle's right wing, a die crack propagated into what mint engineers call a cud. A cud is a raised, blob-like area of metal where the die actually broke away, allowing the planchet to flow into the empty space. On a normal error coin, a cud devalues the piece because it represents damage. But on the Ghost Mint Mark quarter, that cud is perfectly positioned to form the unmistakable silhouette of a second eagle. A ghost eagle. Two errors on the same coin from the same overworked die. And here's the kicker. The Philadelphia Mint never officially acknowledged this die pair existed. When a die fails catastrophically, the Mint is supposed to destroy the die and scrap the affected coins. But someone on the line, perhaps under pressure to meet production quotas, let the die run until it literally began shredding the metal. The result is a coin that should never have left the building. A coin that is, in the words of one leading numismatic forensic analyst, a manufacturing abomination and a miracle simultaneously. So how many exist? We do not know for certain. The leading census, maintained by a private consortium of error dealers, lists only 3 confirmed examples in collector hands. 3. 2 of those grade MS-64 and MS-65, respectively. But the third, the one that ignited the market, was discovered in 2022 by a truck driver in Ohio who noticed something odd about the mint mark on his morning coffee change. He sent that coin to professional coin grading service. It came back as MS-66 with a struck-through grease, double mint mark, reverse cud designation. Peace GS had never seen that combination on a 1995 P quarter. Ever. In April of 2024, that quarter crossed the auction block through a private sale brokered by one of the top numismatic firms. The final price, including buyer's premium, was $599,000, just shy of $600,000, for a quarter that had bought a cup of coffee 20 years earlier. Let that sink in. That truck driver, a man who likely never imagined retiring early, now holds the equivalent of a paid-off mortgage, a new car, and a college fund for his grandchildren. And he found that quarter in the wild. Not a coin show, not in a bank-wrapped roll, in his pocket. You're probably asking yourself, how do I find this coin? What do I look for? I'm going to give you the exact diagnostic checklist. Number 1, the mint mark. You need a 1995 Washington quarter with a P mint mark. That is mandatory. On a genuine ghost error, that P will look blurry, almost doubled, but not in the crisp way of a classic double die. It will look like a shadow, like a second P was stamped over the first with a worn stamp. Number 2, the reverse cud. On the eagle's right wing, the wing that is on the left side of the coin when you look at it, there should be a small, raised bump near the tip of the wing. That bump is the cud. If you run your fingernail over it, you will feel a distinct ridge. That ridge should not be there on a normal quarter. Number 3, the most important clue. Look at the word liberty on the obverse. On the ghost error, the letter B often shows a small horizontal line crossing the middle, a result of the same die crack that created the mint mark doubling. That line is the smoking gun. Now, I need to reset your attention because this is where most people make a catastrophic mistake. They find a 1995 P quarter. They see a little blur on the mint mark. They see a tiny bump on the eagle's wing. And they convince themselves they have a 6-figure coin. They do not. The ghost error requires all 3 diagnostics in perfect, simultaneous alignment. Without the cud, you have a common minor double mint mark worth maybe $50. Without the mint mark shadow, you have a common die crack worth $10. The magic, the extreme rarity, the $500,000 valuation comes from the confluence of errors. It is the numismatic equivalent of a total solar eclipse. Rare, breathtaking, and over in an instant. This is why the market for the 1995 P Ghost Mint Mark quarter is so white-hot right now. Wealthy collectors are actively paying bounties for raw, ungraded examples. I have seen verified offers of $75,000 for any example that shows even 2 of the 3 diagnostics, just on the chance that a third diagnostic will appear after cleaning. And the urgency? The Federal Reserve has been aggressively pulling older quarters from circulation to replace them with newer designs featuring the Washington crossing the Delaware reverse. Every day, Tens of thousands of 1995p quarters are being melted down or taken out of circulation and destroyed. The supply is shrinking. The demand is exploding. And the window of opportunity to find one of these in pocket change is closing faster than most people realize. So here is your call to action. Tonight, you're going to empty every coin jar, every forgotten jacket pocket, every drawer in your house. You're going to sort out every 1995p Washington quarter. And you're going to examine each one under a bright light with a magnifying glass. A 10-power loop is sufficient. Do not clean the coin. Do not rub it. Do not attempt to improve the surface. Cleaning destroys numismatic value faster than any other mistake. Simply inspect. Look for that shadowy P. Look for the cut on the reverse wing. Look for the line in the B of Liberty. If you find even a hint of these anomalies, do not celebrate. Do not post on social media. You immediately place that coin in a protective flip, and you contact a reputable error coin dealer. I have trusted partners linked in the description below. They will guide you through authentication, grading, and auction consignment. But I want to leave you with something deeper than a treasure hunt. This coin, this tiny sliver of copper nickel-clad, represents a fundamental truth about wealth. Wealth is not always noisy. It does not always announce itself with flashing lights and ticker symbols. Sometimes wealth is quiet. Sometimes it has been sitting in a dusty jar on your kitchen counter for a decade, waiting for someone with the knowledge and the patience to see it. The difference between the spender and the collector is not luck. It is attention. It is curiosity. It is the willingness to look closer when everyone else looks away. You have that power now. You know the secret of the 1995p Ghost Mint Mark quarter. And that knowledge is worth more than any single coin. Before we end, I promise you a cliffhanger. The Ghost Mint Mark quarter is not the only modern error coin hiding in plain sight. There is another, even more elusive, from the same year, with an error so subtle that it was only discovered when a coin rolled under a vending machine and the owner saw something impossible. A 1995 dime struck on a quarter planchet. That coin, only two known, carries an estimated value north of $2 million. In our next video, we will show you exactly how to spot that chimera, why the mint never admitted to losing a single planchet that day, and why a simple scale is your best weapon in the hunt. Subscribe and hit the bell, because your pocket change just became the most interesting investment portfolio you never knew you had. You're holding a fortune in your hand right now. Not a lottery ticket, not a stock certificate. A piece of metal so small it slips between your fingers, so common you've probably tossed into a tip jar without a second thought. But here is the question that will keep you awake tonight. What if I told you that a single United States quarter, minted in 1990, stamped with a tiny D from the Denver Mint, has sold for $466,000? $466,000 for a coin that looks almost exactly like the one sitting in your car's cup holder. Stop. Take a breath. Because the difference between a quarter that buys a soda and a quarter that buys a brand new Porsche is not luck. It is knowledge. And in the next 15 minutes, you're going to learn exactly what separates pocket change from life-changing wealth. Here is the painful truth. Every single day, someone spends a fortune without knowing it. They drop rare coins into vending machines. They roll them up and take them to the bank for face value. They hand them to a cashier who has no idea what just crossed the counter. And you might have done the same thing. That loose change in your dresser drawer? That old coffee can full of quarters your grandfather left behind? That handful of coins the gas station clerk gave you this morning? Any one of them could be the ticket, but only if you know what to look for. Only if you stop being a spender and start being a collector. Let me reset your attention right now. I want you to pause this video, walk to wherever you keep your spare change, and dump it out on a table. Just look. Don't sort yet. Just look at the dates and the mint marks. I will wait. You hear that silence? That is the sound of possibility. Because the coin we're talking about today, the 1990D Mint Mark Washington quarter, is a ghost in the system. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But under the right light, with the right knowledge, it reveals itself as one of the rarest error coins ever produced by the United States Mint. And you might have one. Let's begin Act 1 properly. The hook is simple. Fear of missing out is real, and it should be. Every day that you ignore your pocket change is a day you might be walking past a small fortune. The contrast between a spender and a collector is the difference between seeing a quarter as 25 cents and seeing it as a potential $400,000 asset. Spend your change carelessly, and you lose. Examine it carefully, and you win. That is not hype. That is numismatic history repeating itself over and over again. And the 1990D quarter is the perfect example. Now, Act 2. Let's get technical. Let us get deep into the minting errors that turn this common coin into an absolute unicorn. The Washington quarter was first issued in 1932 to honor the 200th birthday of America's first president. By 1990, the design had been running for nearly 60 years. The Denver Mint was producing millions of quarters that year for everyday circulation. But something went wrong on one particular die, a die being the steel engraving that stamps the design onto a blank planchet. And when that die failed, it created a handful of quarters that should never have existed. The first error is a double die obverse. That means the front of the coin, the side with George Washington's portrait, was struck twice by the die in slightly misaligned positions. But this is not the common doubling you might have heard about. This is a dramatic, easily visible doubling on the date, the word liberty, and especially on the phrase "In God We Trust." Under magnification, the letters look like they have shadows. They look like they are vibrating. That alone would make a coin valuable. But the 1990D error quarter has something even rarer. It has what experts call a floating D mint mark error. Here is what happened. The mint mark, that tiny D that tells you the coin was made in Denver, is not carved into the master die. It is punched into each working die by hand. In 1990, a mint employee working the press accidentally punched the D twice. Once in the correct position, then a second time slightly above and to the left. The result is a mint mark that appears to hover. It is not attached to the normal spot. It floats just above the date. And on top of that, the second punch was made with a worn die, so the D is misshapen. It looks almost like a blob or an incomplete letter. That combination, a strong double die obverse plus a floating, misshapen D mint mark, is virtually unheard of. But wait, there's a third error on the rarest examples. And this is the one that pushes the value into the stratosphere. On a small number of these quarters, the reverse die, the eagle side, was also misaligned during striking. That created what is called a partial collar error. The reeded edge that normally runs around the entire coin was only pressed halfway. The rest of the edge is smooth, almost like a planchet that never finished becoming a coin. So you have three distinct errors on a single quarter: a dramatic double die obverse, a floating D mint mark, and a partial collar on the reverse. The United States Mint has never officially acknowledged how many of these escaped into circulation. But independent numismatic researchers, after decades of hunting, have confirmed only 3 examples in existence. 3. That is not rarity. That is mythology. Let me reset your attention again. Think about the odds. The Denver Mint produced roughly 613 million quarters in 1990. 613 million. Out of that sea of metal, only 3 known examples carry all 3 errors. That means your chance of finding one in pocket change is statistically close to 0. And yet, people have found them. Not at coin shows, not in auctions, in pocket change, in old coin jars, in forgotten collections from relatives who had no idea what they were holding. That is the magic of numismatics. The most valuable coins in American history have a habit of hiding in plain sight. So why is this coin called Ghost? Because it haunts the market. Every few years, a rumor surfaces that another 1990D floating D quarter has been discovered. Collectors scramble. Prices jump. Then the coin disappears into a private collection, and the hunt begins again. It is elusive. It is undocumented in most official guides because the errors are so rare that the major price guides do not even list them. And that silence creates opportunity. When a coin is too rare to be listed, savvy collectors who know what to look for can buy them from unsuspecting sellers for pennies on the dollar. That has happened before, and it will happen again. Now, Act 3, the resolution, the market value. You have been waiting for the number, and here it is. In a private sale brokered by a major numismatic firm in early 2023, a certified 1990D Washington quarter with all three errors, double die obverse, floating D mint mark, and partial collar reverse, sold for $466,000. That is not an estimate. That is not an insurance appraisal. That is actual money that changed hands. The coin was graded by professional coin grading service as MS64, which is mint state with moderate luster and some visible contact marks. Even in that condition, it broke records for any Washington quarter from the modern era. A higher grade example, if one exists, could easily top $700,000. Let me put that in perspective. $466,000 is a down payment on a house in almost any American city. It is a college education for 2 children. It is a year of retirement income for a couple living comfortably. And you could find it in a handful of coins from the gas station. But only if you know the errors. Only if you look closely. Only if you stop assuming that every quarter is the same. Here is your call to action. And I want you to feel the urgency. The market for error coins is heating up right now because interest rates are volatile and investors are looking for hard assets that are not tied to the stock market. Rare coins have outperformed gold, silver, and real estate over the last decade. And the 1990D floating D quarter is at the center of that surge. Every month, more collectors enter the market. Every month, the remaining undiscovered examples become more valuable. If you have a 1990 quarter with a D mint mark, do not spend it. Do not clean it. Do not even rub it with your fingers. Put it in a protective flip. Examine it under a magnifying glass. Look for doubling on the date and the word liberty. Look for a mint mark that seems to float above its normal position. Look at the edge. Is the reading complete all the way around, or does it stop halfway? These are the signs. These are the signals. Let me reset your attention one last time. This is not a drill. This is not clickbait. This is the reality of modern numismatics. The 1990D Washington quarter with a triple error package is so rare that most professional dealers will go their entire careers without ever seeing one in person. But you have something they do not. You have this knowledge right now, in this moment. And knowledge is the only tool you need to turn pocket change into hidden wealth. So here's what I want you to do before the end of the day. Go through every quarter in your house. Check the change jar. Check the cup holders in your car. Check the pockets of that jacket you have not worn since last winter. Look at every 1990 date. Look at every D mint mark. And if you find one that looks even slightly unusual, do not post it on social media. Do not take it to a pawn shop. Take it to a certified numismatic expert. Get authenticated, because that quarter could be the one. That quarter could be the ghost. Before we close, I want to leave you with a cliffhanger. The 1990D floating D quarter is not the only modern ghost coin hiding in your change. There is another coin, minted just 2 years later, with an error so bizarre that the mint recalled most of them, but a handful slipped through. And one of those recently sold for over $600,000. In our next video, I'm going to show you exactly which coin that is, how to spot it in under 10 seconds, and why it is still being found in bankrolls to this day. You do not want to miss that. So hit subscribe right now. Turn on the notification bell, because the next fortune you find could be sitting in your pocket at this very moment. Go check. Now, you are about to read something that will permanently change the way you look at every single quarter that passes through your hands. In the next few minutes, I will describe a coin so rare, so cloaked in error, and so absurdly valuable that its discovery in your pocket change would instantly rewrite your financial future. We're talking about the 1998 P Mint Mark Washington $quarter coin. Not the ordinary one, not the one you spent on gum last Tuesday, but a ghost that has floated through American commerce for over 2 decades without anyone noticing. And here's the terrifying truth. Someone, somewhere, has probably already spent it. Maybe you did. Or maybe, just maybe, it is sitting right now in that dusty coffee can on your dresser, inside that old jacket you never wear, or buried under loose receipts in your car center console. The difference between a spender and a collector is not luck. It is awareness. And after today, you will never again see a quarter and think spare change. You will see a lottery ticket that the government minted for free. Stop right there. I mean it. Pause this video for 3 seconds and go grab the nearest handful of quarters from your wallet, your junk drawer, or that ceramic bowl by the front door. I will wait, because what I am about to reveal will trigger a scavenger hunt in your brain that will not end until you have checked every coin within a mile of your home. Are you back? Good. Now listen closely. Let me paint a picture. It is a humid afternoon in Philadelphia, 1998. The United States Mint is running at full tilt, stamping out millions of Washington quarters with a P Mint mark. Business as usual. But inside the presses, something goes terribly, beautifully wrong. A tiny, almost imperceptible alignment shift. A die that had been used millions of times too many. A planchet that fed into the press at the wrong microsecond. And in that moment of mechanical chaos, a handful of quarters were born not as ordinary currency, but as future museum pieces. Most were caught, destroyed, or never left the mint. But a few slipped through. They entered the Federal Reserve System. They went to banks. They went into cash registers. And then they vanished into the pockets of everyday Americans who had no idea they were carrying a down payment on a house. Fast forward to today. The 1998 Washington quarter with the specific error set we are about to dissect has become the holy grail of modern numismatics. How rare? Experts estimate that fewer than 10 examples exist in any condition. Fewer than 10. Compare that to the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle, of which 13 are known, and you begin to understand the scarcity we're dealing with. But here is where the FOMO becomes physically painful. While collectors have spent decades hunting the 1998 error quarter, ordinary people have been spending them on soda, parking meters, and vending machines. The coin you are about to learn about has a confirmed auction record of $510,000. $510,000. That is not a typo. That is more than the median home price in 22 American states. That is a year of elite private college tuition, plus room and board, plus a brand new Tesla. And it has been hiding in plain sight. Now, let us get technical, because knowledge is the only tool that separates you from the thousands of people who have already failed this test. The 1998 Washington quarter in its normal form is worth exactly 25 cents. Boring. But the error version we are tracking exhibits a trifecta of minting mistakes so unlikely that mathematicians have calculated the odds at roughly 1 in 40 million. First, the obverse die, the side with Washington's profile, suffered a dramatic die crack that propagated from the rim at the 11 o'clock position. Second, and far more significant, the reverse die, the eagle side, shows a spectacular double strike with a 5% misalignment between impressions. In plain English, the planchet was struck, rotated slightly, and then struck again. This creates what numismatists call a rotated double die reverse. Look closely at the word quarter and the olive branch. You will see a faint but unmistakable ghost image overlapping the primary design, like a photograph that shifted mid-exposure. But here is the killer detail. Because the second strike happened while the coin was still trapped in the collar, the metal flowed in 2 directions at once, producing a subtle but undeniable proof like reflectivity in the fields. That mirror effect is impossible on a business strike quarter unless this specific error occurred. The United States Mint has never officially acknowledged how this happened, but independent metallurgists who have examined the known specimens agree that the die pair was worn beyond tolerance and then subjected to a pressure surge, likely a maintenance failure on the coining press. And then comes the third error, the one that transforms this coin from a curiosity into a $500,000 monster. The planchet itself was improperly annealed. Annealing is the heat treatment that softens the metal blank before striking. In 1998, a batch of quarter planchets was accidentally annealed at a temperature that was too low, leaving the outer layers of the copper-nickel clad partially unbonded. When the double strike occurred, the centrifugal force from the rotating dies actually delaminate a microscopic sliver of the clad layer near the rim at the 7 o'clock position. That exposed the pure copper core underneath. But instead of flaking off entirely, which would have reduced the value, the delaminate section folded back onto the surface like a tiny flap. Under 20 power magnification, you can see a crescent-shaped skid mark, of copper that transitions into nickel. This is called a partial clad fold error, and it is unique to the 1998P family of error quarters. No other year, no other mint mark has produced this exact combination. Why is this coin a ghost in the market? Because most error collectors focus on obvious flaws, off-center strikes, broad strikes, missing clad layers. The 1998P quarters errors are subtle. To the naked eye, it looks almost normal. The die crack could pass for a scratch. The rotated double die is only visible if you know exactly what angle to hold the coin under a single light source. And the clad fold is buried near the rim, easily mistaken for a tiny scuff from circulation. Professional grading services like PeaceGS and NGC have designated this error with the catalog number QP 1998-3E, and they have graded exactly 7 examples in the past 25 years. None have ever graded above MS64 because the errors themselves interfere with the luster. But here is the paradox. The errors are the value. An MS64 example with full Thunder Ridge, rotated double die, and clad fold sold at Heritage Auctions in 2021 for $510,000, including buyer's premium. The same coin in MS65 would likely break 7 figures. But that coin probably does not exist. So where does that leave you today? The market for modern error quarters has exploded in the last 3 years. Prices are up 400% since 2020. Wealthy collectors who have already secured the classic rarities are now chasing the ultra-modern ghosts like the 1998P. And here is the urgency. When a coin reaches the $500,000 threshold, the window of opportunity slams shut very quickly. Why? Because every news article, every YouTube video, every forum post triggers a mass search. The remaining ungraded specimens, and experts believe 3 to 5 still exist in circulation, will be found within the next 18 to 24 months. After that, the supply dries up forever. The coin becomes a legend, locked away in safes and museum displays. You are either part of the discovery wave, or you're the person who reads about it 5 years from now and feels that sickening punch in the gut. I want you to imagine the moment. You are sitting at your kitchen table, sorting through a jar of quarters you have not touched since 2019. You flip one over. You see the P mint mark. You hold it under a desk lamp at a 45-degree angle. And then you see it, the faint lightning bolt of the die crack. The ghostly double image on the eagle. That tiny copper crescent near the rim. Your hands start to shake. You look up the nearest coin dealer. You send it to PCGS with overnight shipping. 3 weeks later, you get the email, authentic, genuine, Cupi 1998 3E, grade, MS63. 2 months after that, you are on the phone with an auction house representative who uses the words reserve price and private bidding war. And 6 months later, you're signing paperwork that deposits $500,000 into your account. That is not a fantasy. That is the documented reality of the last 3 people who found this coin. But you have to move. Not tomorrow. Not this weekend. Right now. Go through every quarter in your house. Check your car's ashtray. Call your parents and ask them to check their change jars. Hit up the Coinstar reject tray every time you pass a grocery store. This is not paranoia. This is a numbers game. And the numbers say that someone listening to this video is statistically likely to be within 3 degrees of separation from one of the remaining 1998P error quarters. The only question is whether you will be the one to recognize it or the one who spins it on a pack of gum. I will leave you with a final, chilling thought. The last confirmed sale of this coin at $510,000 happened in November of 2021. The buyer was a private collector from Texas who immediately placed it in a time-lock safe. That collector has publicly stated that he will pay $600,000 for the next example in any grade above MS60. That means the market value has already increased by nearly 20% in just 2 years. And with inflation driving wealthy investors into hard assets like rare coins, the next auction could hit $700,000. Do you feel that urgency? Good. That is your instinct screaming at you to act. Before you run off to hunt, I need you to do one more thing. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because in my next video, I am revealing another ultra-rare ghost coin. This one from the year 1999, with an error so subtle that all 50 state quarters from the Philadelphia Mint could be hiding it. And unlike the 1998 P, this one is still being found multiple times per year. You do not want to be the last person to know. Now go. Your fortune is waiting in your pocket change.